so this is exciting. Sean, we're live, man. This is this has been a little dream in the making ever since that first interview that we did back now in June. And obviously today we have an extremely special guest, Diamandia. And I got it right because I asked her right before this started if we could pronounce her name correctly, because she's got an absolutely beautiful name and an absolutely beautiful story and an absolutely beautiful soul. So I didn't want to butcher any of that because we gotta make sure we do it right. And so we're really excited about this because I'll tell you, me and Sean talk about this all the time. And sometimes our favorite things, you know, at least me personally, and Sean was saying the same thing, there's nothing quite like having a conversation with someone, and a real conversation with someone. And, you know, before I dive too much into your story, you know, I want Sean actually to introduce you, because he found you on Instagram after listening to this podcast. And I'll just say quick background. He goes, Tess, you gotta listen to this. She is unbelievable. And I was like, oh, I'm pumped up about this. And before we give you away to our guests, I just got to say, you are incredible. And even from the 10 minutes that we talked before we were recording, you got me so pumped up, and you already got me in such a better headspace. And that's the mark of a person that's just spectacular. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Sean do the rest of the introduction, and then we'll get right to it. We're very excited about this.
Yes, we really are. So I mean, like John said, I was flicking through podcasts one day, and my good friend Shannon, who's a yoga instructor, she's very in tune with a lot of different, you know, avenues of podcasts and listening, that stuff that I normally wouldn't listen to. And as I was saying before we started recording, I kind of got a little bit out there to Jeremy Goldberg's podcast, which is called the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. And I stumbled upon Diamandia's interview with him. And I listened to this interview, and I had tears in my eyes, and just, you become so emotional hearing just the raw realness of your story, Diamandia. And it's just incredible just how much you overcame, and I was just moved. And to be totally honest, I listened to the episode like probably 10 to 15 times. And, you know, I reached out on Instagram and just shot you a quick message, and, you know, said, hey, you really changed my life, just kind of hearing this stuff. And it's incredible to hear what strangers go through. And I think a lot of the times, you know, we all go through our struggles, our trials and tribulations, but, you know, hearing other people that go through a lot worse things sometimes, and they overcome it, and they use these things to propel themselves forward in a more positive direction, or a different direction, a different path that they wouldn't have been on prior. It's very inspiring. So without further ado, Diamandia.
Hi. I don't even know what to say. Thank you guys so much. That was such an unbelievable intro. I don't right there.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for
having me so much. So grateful. So grateful.
We really appreciate it. So let's I think we should give the people kind of a background about, you know, where you're from, what you do, as of now, and then we'll kind of date back and move forward.
So I'm currently living in Newport, Rhode Island. I grew up in Connecticut. I lived in New York City. I moved to Las Vegas for 5 years, and then I came back to Rhode Island. I also worked in Boston for a good amount of time in between all of that stuff. I am an entrepreneur and consultant for various companies. I usually handle workflow initiatives, corporate build-outs, companies that are about to grow drastically very fast, franchisees, creative marketing solutions across the board. So front of the house, back of the house, technology solutions that support that as well.
Okay, great. So, Rhode Island, you grew up there?
I grew up in Connecticut and New York. So Clinton and Madison, Connecticut.
Oh, Madison, yeah, my buddy lives there actually.
Oh, really?
And, all right, so you grew up there, and then what was kind of the upbringing? You played sports. What were you into?
Yep, I played sports. I played volleyball and basketball. And women's sports in the town that I grew up in were better than men's sports. We were like a very small school, but we were, state champs and softball, basketball, and volleyball. And it was the same core group of girls. And we all played. I didn't play 3 sports. I didn't play softball, but everybody else played all 3. And it was the same coach. So who was the most influential people in my life. And you just got stuck with Grippo. And once you got in Grippo's net, you just went through it. So he cultivated this little female army of badass athletes out of nowhere. And we just kept winning state championships. So
you just don't lose, huh?
He didn't lose. I mean, that guy he is an unbelievable human being. Just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I can't tell you how. I remember specifically having a really hard time in my 30s when I was working on opening a Boston restaurant right next to Fenway Park. And I couldn't get the branding right. I couldn't. I was struggling. It was like 11:30 at night, and I was in my office, laying on the floor with my computer on me. Like, that's how bad it was. And I went back to, in my brain, it popped into the highlight reel. He used to make us watch this highlight reel before every state or Shoreline Championship game, like any tough game. We watched Larry Bird's winning it all, right? I know that entire thing front to back. And here I am in my 30s, laying on my office in Boston, watching Winning It All from Larry Bird's highlight reel. That's how in my head he is. So.
Got that motivation.
Oh my God, he's insane. He's insane.
Well, you have this incredible work ethic, and I think one thing that's so amazing about you is, and obviously we'll dive into it in a little bit, but from your story and from your whole life, it's did you develop that work ethic, you think, from your upbringing, or was it something that kind of just you're like, man, I just want to be successful. I'm going to work my butt off at everything I do? Or does a lot of that have to do with some of those same girls and some of the things that your coach taught you? Was it one of those things that was always within you, or did it kind of say to you one day, damn, I want to work my butt off and do whatever I want in life?
It was a bunch of things. It had a lot to do with exactly what you just said. I am very driven. I was not athletic when I was in high school. And I did triple sessions, and I was always staying after, and I was always trying harder, because growing up in my family, it was very clear that nothing was going to be provided to me, and nothing the mental state of what my parents' expectations for me were very low. And that's cool, because that was more for them than they had. So that's, their brain was already in a different space. So what they thought for me was more than what they have, but what I thought for me was anything I wanted.
Yeah.
And I very much believe that you can create any kind of life you want. Nothing is impossible. You can manifest, you can work hard, you can find a way to create the world that you're living in. And nothing was going to stop me. And, being very Greek and having a father who told me that I wasn't going to college, I was going to fucking college. I was going to 2 colleges. Don't tell me I'm not doing something, because I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to do it twice. And
yeah.
So I had this innate hungry drive, but it was also coming from a place of not being seen by my family, not being seen by my parents. So this was a really amazing gift that I had And it got me so far in my career, and it pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. But it was coming from a scarcity mindset, basically, you know. And I didn't realize that until these past couple of years, what that drive was coming from. I wanted to be, yes, I wanted to make money. Yes, I wanted the validation. Yes, I wanted to look the part. Yes, I wanted all these things. I worked really fucking hard for all of it. But when it came down to it, like, why was I doing that? It's because I wanted my parents to acknowledge that I was fucking doing a good job. You know?
Yeah. So I'm kind of brought back to a question that me and John spoke about in our interview a couple months back. What drives you more, like the fear of losing or loving to win?
Now?
What did drive you back then? It was the fear of losing, right?
Yeah.
And that's transcendence.
That has very much changed now. Now losing is like not even a loss.
Yeah.
Like what based on like what you guys know about my story, like what are you gonna take? What do you got?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm good in a tent with my dog. You know, like I don't care. Everything is replaceable except humans. And as long as you are good within yourself, everything should be fine. So, I mean, it took me a very long time, and I had to hit a lot of bumps and fires and breathing dragons in order to be able to say that. But failure is not failure. Failure is learning. And like, I very much believe in the concept of fail harder. Like, if you're going to fail, like, pick yourself up again. What did you learn out of that? Fail again. Fail again, because eventually what happens is all the things that you failed out come together into this giant mesh piece of like what you are as a person and what you do and what you give. And all of those failures define you because they're all learning points. And you put them all together, and all of a sudden you have an amazing company that's servicing thousands of people, you know, and helping others and giving back into a community. And you wouldn't have figured that all out until you failed 150 times to get there.
Amazing too, you bring that up, because a lot of that, I think, with failure too, I think so much when we put pressure on external validation, right, that's usually when we start to fail a little bit more. It's like, I got to do this because if my mom sees this or my dad sees this, I'm going to be great, instead of trying to kind of build from within. And I think I can guarantee like 99% of people in their early careers, right? It's just natural, right? It's the competitive society we grew up in, but it's almost like that secret sauce to life is when we start kind of seeking validation from within, because when you have that validation from within, what's going to stop you? I argue not much.
Yeah, not much. And things that you would get mad at or would let bother you before, you don't give a shit about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's external validation so much, it's like I could give two shits about what people think about me. You know, I really
become so trivial.
Yeah, it's like, well, just it's like a swipe. Like they're not even, who are they anymore? You know, they're not even in my view. You know?
I'd love to hear a little bit about your early career, right? Because I know that coming out of school, I know you did a lot of very, very high-end work. And I know sometimes when you do a lot of work and when you work for some important companies and when you work your tail off, so to speak, sometimes a lot of stress comes with that. But I'd love to hear if you could maybe walk through a little bit some of your early work before the engagement day. I would love to hear a little bit about just kind of the work that you did and some of the things that you felt like you were highly succeeding at, but also you started seeing some little struggles that you might have not known were struggles at the time.
So I've had two major jobs in my career. One was for about 11 years with a restaurant company in Boston, and the other was with the UFC in Las Vegas. The restaurant company in Boston was, I got right out of grad school, and it was just kind of a job that turned into it itself. It's just, I happened to be in the right space at the right time, doing the right things. And they grew and they needed my services, and it just kept trickling. And I was really successful with them because I was dealing with all dudes, and I could navigate male ego really well, and I work better with it. I'm finding as I work with women right now. And so, excuse me, that was extremely unhealthy. It was not a really like a real company. It was an umbrella corporation. So each separate restaurant was set up individually. So you had to deal with managing partners that had vested interests here and vested interests there and didn't want you working there. And there was a lot of kind of jumping between importance and who was important and who you had to like deal with and who you didn't have to, but only when like it was just like a dumb dick swing, seriously. Like, and I learned a lot about business. I learned about how to navigate business. I learned how to be comfortable in my own skin in those types of situations, but it was super toxic and really unhealthy. So when I left that company and I took a year off, and I highly recommend this to every single human being, to take a year off of work and like have money in the bank account, even if you're not living the lifestyle that you're used to living, unplug, just go do something else, work in a museum, go waitress, go bartend, like unplug your brain from the thing that you used to love doing that you no longer love, and learn to like come back to the reason why you love it again, because you're no longer burnt out in this like 3-ring circus that you're running into. I was so burnt out. I was so over it. I was like, I had opened, I think 12 restaurants, and I had taken 2 nationally at this time. So that was awesome learning curve. I got to learn business models and learn guerrilla marketing to, and then repeat and build on and repeat and build on and repeat and build on until I got to learn how to take a business model national, which was awesome. But I was fried. I was fried, and I didn't care anymore, and I didn't want to care. I just was done. And I took that time, and I ended up moving to Las Vegas. The guy I was dating at the time got a job offer, and he was originally from Vegas. And I was like, you know what? Who cares? I had never even been to Las Vegas. Let me just preface this. Okay?
Quite a culture shock, huh?
But in my head, I was like, the worst case scenario, I can just move back home.
Yeah.
Like, what do I have to lose? An experience? Like, I have to lose, like, everything here is going to be exactly the way I left it if I come back. Like, I own an investment property in Providence, so we left a unit open in case I needed to. I had a trap door. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, who cares? What am I going to be able to move to Las Vegas and figure that out, So I did. I moved out there. I didn't work for 9 months. That was really hard because I didn't have any friends. New York was very cool, and being artistic and having an artistic background, there's like a vibe that you could just like walk around and go to museums, and there's like an energy that you can just dive into. Vegas, there was no energy like that. Like, I just went to Lifetime Fitness for 4 hours a day and started back up in that, and really just kind of tried to like navigate and figure out getting a job, and I really hated it. But I did it. And right when I got the job at the UFC, the week I got the job at the UFC, my boyfriend and I broke up. So
Jesus.
One door, another one open.
I remember my first week of work, I was crying at my desk. Like, the new girl is crying at her desk, and like I felt like you weren't allowed to cry at the UFC. Like, there's no crying and fighting, like no one ever said that. There was no cultural stigma. It was in my brain that I thought that. But yeah, I remember just sobbing at my desk in front of my coworkers who were like, oh, the new girl who's going to be in charge of the venture capital extension building her ass out. And I had to go, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? And I was like, I'm just going to quit. Okay, like, I don't need to do that.
What brought you to the UFC, though? How did you stumble upon that? Because obviously, a very interesting career.
Well, I have this creative background in marketing and corporate building, and I didn't really know about the UFC, and my ex had been like, I think you should like do some research in this company. And I was like, nah. And he was like, no, like, D, like, this is for you. You are like, you work out 4 hours a day for fun. Like, this is a perfect match. He was like, this couldn't be any more amazing. Like, look up the Fertitta brothers. And I was like, what? Like, I just was like, no, I just don't want to. Like, I don't know if I was, whatever my deal was, but I just was being resistant to it. And I just applied for it online. I applied for like a position I knew I was completely overqualified for.
Wow.
And I like got it. Just applied online, got the job. And I remember the interview process was super intense. I had 5 interviews, and it was because there was 2 sides to the company, and then there was an executive team. So everyone wanted to meet me before they said yes, but they had already made the decision within like the first interview. So every time I came back, they were just like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like, just smile and just be you. It's fine. You got this. And I was just like, okay, but my face was still on the floor because, I'm walking in the offices like, is this really happening?
Wow.
So yeah, I just started working there. And then I knew going into that position what the company really needed and what they were hiring me for. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, oh, I'm going to just double my salary in 2 months. Like it was like, we're going to go in here. But like I've done this 12 times already, so I already saw the components and was like, this is perfect. We're going to be able to make huge change and strides with them, and we can like really impact people. So when I started, they had just had the acquisition of LA Boxing. So like literally my first week of work, we acquired 99 boxing gyms. And I was still like not knowing the fighters' names, Mind you, I had little to no knowledge of the UFC. Like I love George St. Pierre. And I had gone to watch 2 games or 2 fights at Hooters with my ex-boyfriend. That's all I had in my bag.
Oh my goodness. You learned quick though, huh?
Oh my God, I had to, but everyone there, it's like, so I got placed where I sat was in so smart. The woman, the vice president there she's such a badass. She put me like in the Thunderdome with everyone who knows everything. So I could literally be like, and I remember asking the dumbest questions because they were like, how do you not know who this person is? I'm like, I don't know much about this place. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just know I can do this job. That's what they hired me. So they put me in a space where I could get as much knowledge from the people around me as humanly possible. And we all just became really close. So they kept me, it was like at the time the UFC was very much like a family. And that first week I'm still crying and I don't know what I'm doing here. And I want to move home and what am I doing with my life? And then there was the 20-year anniversary documentary came out, and it was a big deal for the company. And we went to Red Rock to watch it, and there was probably like 80 people, because at the time the UFC was still like, without the events team, which they were on the road, like 80 to 100 people max. We're all in a theater, and we watched this documentary, and it was about like how the UFC started and how Lorenzo and Dana had come in and purchased it, and all the struggles they went through, and how it almost went bankrupt, and how they had to dump money into it, and how they almost walked on it, and how that fight with Stephan Bonnar like saved the company. And that was like the pivotal moment where the UFC like became the UFC, and they like went with it. And I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking to this. There is no way in hell I'm going back to Rhode Island when I could sit here and work with these people. Am I out of my fucking mind? Like,
watching history unfold right before your eyes.
And being part of the history too. Like,
yeah.
It's like whining over a fucking boy. Like, who am I? You know, like, and, but it was just, it had to happen. It all had to happen. And I left that place and was like, all right, it's time to get your shit together. Yeah, you're done crying. And I just like made that decision. The LA boxing thing went through, and then we just went for it. And we acquired, I think, 40 more locations, and then became international. And then it was so much at once, and it was so much change within myself at the same time. And I'm also living in Las Vegas, and I clearly use exercise as an outlet for my mental health. I had pushed that limit to such an unhealthy level because I was under so much pressure with myself and then like with the company. And that was my choice to handle in that fashion, but like I kept going and I just kept going. And it was a great tool. And then it started to take me down slowly.
Did it come to a point where it was almost, did it come to a point where almost your life was a little bit controlled by those coping mechanisms?
I mean, I was controlling everything. It was just, I was the definition of a controlling alpha female, like to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like my life started, I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was in the gym by 4:30. I would then leave that gym and then go to another gym at the UFC office, do another hour of cardio. Then I would be at my desk. Then I would take my lunch on a treadmill. And if I didn't have time to do that, I would leave work at like 6 and do like an hour hot yoga class in Vegas, which is like 106 degrees and like 7% humidity. And then I would go back home and do more work until like midnight. And then I would sleep 4 hours.
So you never really had time to really think, in a sense.
No, I was reacting.
Constantly.
With work stuff, and no, my work environment was 3 monitors, my cell phone, my work phone, and a chat. So it was like all of the things were coming at me all at the same time. And I wasn't in the place mentally where I learned how to shut that off.